If you're a mom who was abandoned or neglected as a child, chances are you parent from one of two perspectives, an intentional perspective or a pendulum perspective. And in this video, we'll unpack which one of those parenting perspectives holds your child's best interests at heart. Hi, I'm Dr. Vanessa of Motherhood Unmasked. This morning I felt like sitting outside. It's actually a decent day here in Texas. It's not oppressively humid, and so there's the sounds of the things that happen here in Texas, and so hopefully you're able to hear me above it all, and then I get to also enjoy some decent weather here this fall. If you've listened to my podcast or you've seen any of the previous videos here on this channel, then you know how passionate I am about motherhood, both the moms and the children. Um, that passion has come about honest. My own relationship with my mom while I was growing up was one that left a lot to be desired. We'll just say it that way. She has done and is doing the best she can do with what she was given. It just wasn't enough for me. And so it left me without a lot of the nurturing and even wisdom, time with her in the way that a mother can really pour into a daughter. I missed out on a lot of that. And so I had to get that from other sources and even to give it to myself. And it made me very aware very early on that when I had my own children, I really wanted to pay attention to what I was giving them. And that if I wasn't able to give them what they needed, where I could go to get that. And so a lot of what I have learned in that effort is what I love to share here. And this topic of intentional parenting versus what I have coined pendulum parenting is something I am particularly passionate about. Anything that you want to do, that you want to do well, I think you have to approach with some intention. You have to have a vision for how you want it to play out, a vision for your part in it, how you want to show up, and a vision for how to equip yourself to do that thing well. And parenting is no different, motherhood is no different. And so approaching motherhood for me has been one of great intention, and it has needed to be that because, like I said, I come from a background and experience where I didn't really have a lot to go on in terms of how I wanted to be a mother, and what I had experienced I didn't want to repeat. And so it did require me to give a lot of thought and to put a lot of effort into how I wanted to show up as a mom. One of the things us humans like to do is put everything in boxes. We like to categorize everything and try to put everything in neat boxes that help us make sense of the world. It just doesn't work out that way. And when it comes to parenting, I think a lot of the times us moms forget that what we experienced in our childhood has everything to do with the women we are today and how we approach motherhood. It is, in fact, a continuum. We can't just have this idea that, okay, that happened to me when I was a child, it's over, I'm an adult now, and I'm just starting from here and moving forward. There is still that little girl in you. And whatever she did or did not receive as a child is impacting and coloring how you see things today and how you are interacting with your own children. And so, if you come from a background where your mom wasn't around, your dad wasn't around, and if they were around, they just were sort of into their own thing, they weren't really interested in giving you more than the basics. They fed you, they clothed you, but beyond that, they didn't really pour into you. They didn't spend time with you. They didn't share their wisdom. They didn't share any insights. They didn't give you loving touches. They didn't. If it's your mom, she didn't show you how to become a woman, and so even so, you had to pick up a lot of things just from observing her, because she didn't sit and talk with you about her experience and how her experiences shaped her and what she's learned so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. There is so much that we pass on to our children that is more than feeding them, clothing them, and running them to all the activities that we've signed them up for. And if we're not careful and really mindful of our experience as children, we end up doing things as adults, and in particular, parenting our children in ways that are sort of just on autopilot. They are either we just sort of mindlessly do what we have seen, or we have a type of intention that wants to say, in the pendulum perspective, I will do the exact opposite of what I've experienced. I didn't like it, and whatever that particular thing was, I will do the exact opposite. So, for instance, in my case, my mom was very busy developing her career at that and her getting educated in order to further herself in her career. We didn't have a whole lot of time together beyond what's necessary, what's required. She didn't have a lot of extra time for anything else. And so, if I, out of that deficit, out of the fact that it left me really not knowing how to appreciate female dynamics, understanding female dynamics, a lot of things I had to just learn on my own or learn in context of friendship, the hard way or the easy way, learn from observing my friends with their moms. So if I take that deficit and I say, okay, when I become a mom, I'm going to be all in all the time, very present, very in her stuff. That sounds good because it's I'm going to give my daughter what I didn't have from my mother. Excuse me. The problem is, it's just a reaction to what I went without. There was no intention or thought put into, is that what my daughter needs? Am I smothering her? Am I too involved? Am I not giving her room to even ask questions because I'm flooding her with information? Does she even have room to recognize, oh, I need my mom in this situation? Have I made enough space for her to realize, oh, I need my mom, so that she can come to me, so she can have the self awareness, the opportunity to be self aware that she needs her mom, and let me go to her? If I'm all over her all the time, telling her all the things that I think she should know because nobody told me, I'm actually stifling her. I'm not giving her an opportunity to develop as a person, to develop self awareness, and to recognize her own needs and how she seeks them out. So I had to be mindful in my approach to parenting to say, okay, this was my deficit, and I'm going to have to meet that deficit, that little girl that's still in me. I have to meet the needs that she went without. I can't have her parent my daughter. I can't have her be the driving force in the adult me approaching my daughter. I need to deal with my stuff. Basically, I need to deal with my stuff. And then, as a healthier version of me, see my daughter for who she is and what she needs, and then show up and give her that. It's also the way people say, I didn't like how my mom spoke to me. I didn't like the way she disciplined me. And so I'm not going to do that. I'm actually not going to discipline my children. I'm going to just sort of let them do what they want to do, and they'll figure it out. That sounds good. The problem is, children who are not disciplined don't feel loved. Because if you just let them do whatever they want to do, how how do they know that you care? How do they know that you love them if there's never a no? If everything is available for you to try and figure it out, and you know that if I do that, I would hurt myself, but you're not going to say anything, you're not going to put any boundaries, you're just going to watch me do it, and then, hey, You learned, didn't you? That's not love. And they know it's not love. And so to go all the way to the other extreme of I'm not going to discipline them at all is a reaction. It's the child in you trying to parent the child in front of you. And that's never going to win because that's two peers trying to parent each other. Whereas you as an adult can say, I didn't like the way my mom spoke to me. I didn't like her version of discipline. And so I need to think about how I want to talk to my children. They need discipline. How do I want to do that? Do I want to ask them questions before I give them their consequence? Do I want to give them the respect of understanding where their head was at? And of course, this is age dependent, where their head was at before they did what they did, and then talk to them about how they could have made other choices. And then say, okay, so now that we know what you will do next time, okay, this is what's going to happen this time as a consequence. I'm not telling you how to parent. What I'm saying is to put thought into it, to not parent as a knee jerk reaction, to not parent on a pendulum, right? Where we just, you experience something extreme over here. And so, since you want to get as far away from that as possible, you come all the way over here. There's in the middle. The sweet spot is in the middle. And the middle, right? There are degrees of middle along that whole pendulum swing. You might be dead center. I might be over here to the side. Someone else might be here over to this side. But that's the beauty of you being the mother of your child, you investing in getting to know them and what they need for where they're headed in life and meeting them where they are, as opposed to showing up with your baggage, with your pain, and arbitrarily just stating that for this child and however many children I have, I am doing it this way because it is nothing like this way. Extremes are generally not where it's at. Usually, the best part and the intentional part is somewhere in the middle that recognizes that my children are individuals and they have individual needs. And I am the woman who's been called, who's been assigned, who's been put in the position of nurturing them, raising them, loving them, disciplining them. And the extremes would be easy. It would be easy to just do extremes because you know where the limit is on each side. And so we have a comfort there. The real dance is in the middle. That's where the challenge is in parenting and in motherhood especially, is fine-tuning things for each child. And I understand it's exhausting. I have 3 of them. They're all different. I have different relationships with each of them, and it has been a real effort to get to know each of them and to get to know myself and what my issues have been and how I need to address them, even while I'm not talking about you have to get yourself together, you have to have all the therapy that you need to have before you ever have children so that you're okay and you are the perfect mom to parent. There is no such thing as a perfect parent, period. What I'm saying is that even while I have been parenting my children, it has been an effort to just stay self aware and course correct and ask myself questions. What I just said, and I'm saying I have acted out of the little girl in me. I have acted out according to her, and I've had to come back and clean that up. That's why I'm making this video because I want you to know there's a lot of cleanup if you operate from a pendulum perspective as opposed to intentional. And the intention doesn't just have to be in advance, it is an intention every day. I'm intending to give my children the best version of me I can. Some days are better than others. Some days I've had more sleep than others. Some days there's less foolishness going on in my life other than them than others, and I have the bandwidth to be more intentional. Let's be real. You don't even always have the same kind of bandwidth to be as intentional as you like. And when you miss it, you come back and apologize. I tell you what, that's something that didn't happen in my house growing up. There was not a lot of apologizing going on. But that was that decade, that generation of parenting. I had to grow up to understand that that's not what they're going to do. And I had a choice and an opportunity to say, but that's what I'm going to give my children. I'm not going to apologize for being a parent, but I will apologize when I miss the mark on how I could have handled a situation a better way. And so, sometimes the intention is, okay, I totally messed that up. And now, part of being intentional as a parent is letting my child see that I know how to come back and say, you know what? If I had thought that through better, I would have done it this way. What I really should have said is blah, 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 blah. That not only is honoring my child and giving them respect as a person and recognizing that um, just because they are submitted to me as children, it doesn't mean that they don't have value and that their feelings don't matter and that their perspective is irrelevant. I honor that even as I am the parent who is definitively so and who makes no apologies about it. And my yes is yes and my no is no, all of that. But there's a way to do it where you can still honor your child and you're showing them, you're demonstrating your humility, your understanding that you are not perfect, and you're actually teaching them how to parent. And you may be teaching them to parent in a way that you were not parented, but in a way that you're happy to pass on as a legacy. I didn't receive this. I didn't have parents who would even stop and think about what they said to me and then come back and apologize. But realizing that and the significance of it, I have decided, I have intentionally decided that I'm going to be the kind of parent who will recognize when I've blown it, when I didn't handle it the best way that I could have, and come back and let you know that. That's something I've decided to do out of being intentional. That is powerful. And that is how you shift. I always talk about legacy in motherhood. That's how you shift a legacy. It is not a snap of a finger. And it does not happen in extremes, but it can happen little by little, day by day, with intention that is conscious. Where the adult Vanessa, is parenting, not little Vanessa, who went without and feels a way about it, but adult Vanessa who has both dealt with the little Vanessa inside of her so that she can intentionally raise the children that God has given me. It is a journey. It is not easy. And I know that we have a lot of other stuff going on. We have a lot of concerns, finances, their education, their voices coming into them on social media. And the tendency, if we're not careful and if we're operating on a pendulum, is, well, I can't afford to be as definitive. We kind of want to be cushy and fluid and come all the way over here and just say, you know, it's fine, whatever is fine, because we know we're competing against voices that are literally in their ears. They are just in their earbuds, in their ears. And if you have teens, it's happening at a time when they tend to tune you out. And so it's real easy to say, you know what, I just want them to hear me at all costs. And so I will let all kinds of things slide so that I feel like I have their ear. You know what the issue with that is? Your kids know that you're doing that, and they don't tend to respect people that just say yes, yes, yes all the time. They do want to know that there is a standard. Even though they will fight you tooth and nail about that standard, they will accuse you of being judgmental, of being dogmatic, of being all the things. But deep down, they like a standard. You know how I know? Because I now have children old enough to have been out of the house for a minute and to have had a taste of what it's like to do things their way on their timetable, how they want to, without um, mom and dad's input or commentary. And they have actually come back and said to me, wow, I never appreciated your rules, your perspective. You always seemed extra. You always seemed like you were doing too much. But now I see, I hated it then, but now I see the benefit of the standards that you gave us and the parameters you gave us and all the thought you put in to, and when you would explain why you are doing it this way, even though you know that the majority of our friends' parents were doing it another way. They actually have been able to appreciate that. And I tell you something funny. Last night at the dinner table, two of the children are home and at the table, and we're all having dinner, and we're talking about homecoming coming up and what different friends are doing, and what their parents are providing them to enjoy the evening, and so on and so forth, and what our daughter will be able to participate in with these friends and what they won't be, because we just have different values from some of her friends' parents. And it was interesting to see her big brother chiming in and explaining to her our points. It was like he was an interpreter. You know, we were saying it and he was seeing her point, but also helping her to understand the wisdom as he saw it in what we were saying. The fact that we have these positions that we have because we love her. And not to say that her friends' parents don't love her friends, but this is our daughter and we know her, and um, we know her personality, we know her tendencies, we know her level of maturity, we know what we think is appropriate to expose her to and what not to expose her to. And so, because we're responsible for her and not responsible for raising her friends, we approach it with her in mind. And I'm fine with that. But it was just funny to see, and it was cool to see, because there was a time all three of the kids at the table would all be um, thinking and feeling the same, that we, their dad and I, were the enemy, and we're the ones who don't get it, and we're the ones that are being too much, and we're the ones that need to relax. And it was awesome to see how, with time, and to give you perspective, this brother is 5 years older than his sister. And so it was just interesting to see that he was now old enough to see the wisdom in some of what we were saying, and able then to translate that to his little sister, who looks up to him, who are of, same generation, they're into the same things, they speak the same language, and he was able to share it with her. And not that I needed that for me to continue being the mother that I wanted to be, but it's just to say that a lot of the things that we're afraid of, because we're afraid of parenting with intention, and instead we resort to being reactionary, in our both reactionary to what we experienced in our childhood and reactionary to what we're seeing in the culture. Um, a lot of what we're afraid of actually doesn't pan out. Yes, there will be a season that your kids think you are the dumbest thing, that you know nothing, that you know nothing. But you know what? That is adolescence. That is literally the phase of adolescence. It is their job as adolescents to begin to differentiate and to become independent, at least in their thought, even though they can't be independent in their living conditions. They at least are wanting to become, and actually need to start becoming, independent in their mind. They need to start thinking, I why I'm doing this not because mom and dad say, but because I want to. The problem is they're also still in our house, and we also still have to have rules for their safety. And so that's where the clash comes in. And intentional parenting has to be able to say, you cannot like me and I will live, but I love you. And for your benefit and your best interest, these are the parameters for right now. There will come a day when you will not be in this home and you will establish your own parameters. But until such time, this is what it is. And I respect you. You respect me. We can have a respectful conversation about it. You can share your thoughts and your disagreements. But at the end of the day, what we decide is what's happening. And, um, and I just have to be confident. My husband and I have to be confident that there will come a day when it will all make sense to them. I mean, we've all been teenagers. And even if we've been in homes where we've we haven't been with our parents, they abandoned us, and we grew up with our grandmother or an auntie or a foster home or some situation, wherever you were, there were parameters, there were rules, and fair or not, like them or not, here you are. You survived it. You're an adult, and you're able to look back and see, okay, you know what? It probably was good that that happened to me in that way because it kept me on the straight and narrow. And it's the same thing for our kids. It feels so much worse to us because we're the parents now. And it feels really hurtful and traumatizing because we want to be close to our children. We want that closeness to continue throughout all of our lives. And it can. It can. And so I hope this has encouraged you and just given you food for thought about whether or not your approach to parenting is one with intention, where it's been well thought out. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You're not just reacting to things in the moment, in the situation, but you have put some thought into what you've experienced and how that has shaped you and what you want to continue passing forward on in your relationship with your own children, and what you want to change and how you want to change it and how to change it with your child's best interest at heart, as opposed to sort of parenting for your own self-soothing. That would be what the pendulum parenting is. You're parenting out of what would have made you feel better or what would make you feel better, the little child you inside of you. That has nothing to do with the child in front of you. We need to parent with the child in front of us in mind. And sometimes, many times, that child is nothing like the child you were. That child doesn't have the same needs that you had. They have different needs, and furthermore, we live in a different time. And we live in a different time. And so we have to parent our children and prepare them for the time we're living in, and not from the past and what things we didn't have then. It's a tricky dance. And that's why I make the videos that I'm making, because I just want to encourage us all. I don't have all of the answers, but for whatever I have learned and for whatever I think would be helpful, I do want to share that. And so I hope that's what I've done. I hope this helps. And until next time, when it comes to you being the mother of your children, please remember you are the woman for the job. Take care.